Okay, so what is up guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video I wanted to talk to you about the ESDDI F5 4K on-camera monitor. It's a 5-inch monitor that's a relatively budget monitor, coming in at around $169. For what this monitor offers, it's like extremely feature-packed, very high quality display, and yeah, I'm just going to share my thoughts about this device. It's basically the device you saw in the intro, but yeah, I'll share my thoughts about the device and some upgrades that I had to make to the device to make it really work for me. Some things that I love about the device and some things that I don't. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Okay, so first things first, the ESDDI monitor is a 5-inch monitor, like I said before, and basically, I think you kind of already know the things you get in the box from the intro, but I'm just going to run through them again. You get the monitor unit itself, you get the mounting bracket thing, basically this, which actually has one fundamental problem that I'm going to talk about in a moment. You get a sun hood, you get two HDMI cables, basically the HDMI mini and the HDMI micro. I don't use either of those cables, and I'm going to tell you why in a moment. You also get like a battery, which again I don't use because like I have my own batteries that are like larger sizes. This is the Sony MP770, I believe. Yeah, they have like the smaller version in the box or in the case that I just threw away. You also get a charger for the monitor in the case, and you get like this manual, essentially. I think that's the only thing you're going to call it. It's a manual, it's very detailed, tells you everything that this device does in multiple languages, which is actually pretty impressive. And that's about all you get as far as the content of the box go. Now let's talk about the monitor itself. The last few videos that I've shot have been really good, I think, or I like to think so, and I basically have used this monitor every single time. Now, it's really nice having like an extra display. Well, not an extra display, a larger display essentially that's a little bigger than what your camera offers with a 3.5-inch screen and all that. I mean, yes, this is not a touchscreen monitor or anything. You cannot tap to focus or any of that stuff, but it's actually still pretty nice to have a monitor like this. Now, let's talk about all the features on and around the monitor unit itself. Off to the side, you get an HDMI in, which is basically where you run the HDMI cable from your camera to. You also get an HDMI out for if you want to use like a larger screen for like, I don't know, maybe you have a director that needs to monitor on like a different screen or something, or a larger screen, or you want your talent to be able to see themselves on like a big TV screen, you would use that. There is a DC in. This is basically since the monitor unit itself is actually dual rechargeable, you can actually power it in from this port with like a DC cable. I believe it's a 12-volt in. Now, there is no DC cable included in the box essentially, so you're probably going to have to buy one if you wanted one. I actually have one, but I've never actually used that port. You also have a DC out, 8.4 volts. Now, this is important because now you can use like a dummy battery to power your camera from this port with the power from the battery on your monitor, which actually is pretty insane. It can literally save your shoot in situations where maybe, I don't know, you're running out of battery or running out of juice, especially for people who shoot Sony. I know the people who like Sony shooters, they have like terrible battery life. Everybody knows this, so that might be a really neat feature for you Sony users, so think about that. There's also an headphone jack at the bottom of this. Again, Sony users, people who have like the A6400 and stuff, there is no headphone monitoring or headphone jack on your cameras. It's actually nice to be able to monitor the audio from your video with this headphone jack. There's a USB upgrade port thing at the bottom for if you wanted to upgrade the firmware of the device, I suppose. And on the top of the device, you have two function buttons to the left. Basically, you can customize these function buttons to different settings inside of the camera monitor, which, like I said, is very feature packed, and I'm going to talk about all the features on this camera monitor in a moment. You could customize it to like false color, I don't know, zebras. You could customize it to flip image, which I actually did. I have this to flip image for when I'm doing talking head videos like this, but obviously the monitor is in my hand. I am not really flipping anything or monitoring anything with it right now. You get 2 directional buttons that you're going to basically use for navigation and stuff like that. You get a menu button, you get another 2 navigation buttons essentially. You also get a power button on the left, which is this. You don't get any buttons on the sides, I guess, and on the back you get a push button for when you need to remove the battery, and that's about it. I think that's about all for the physical bits of the monitor unit itself. The mounting bracket has 2 problems that I would like to talk about. It's a really nice mounting bracket that looks nice. It's fully metal, which is good. But out of the box, there was a lot of shakiness with the neck of the device. In fact, I think it's starting to shake again. I had to basically tighten it with like a Phillips head screwdriver, which after a while that stayed. But the bottom part of the mounting bracket is where the real problem is. You see, there's no rubber gasket, and what that basically means is there's going to be a lot of scratching. It's completely metal, like it's aluminum, so I don't really know why they wouldn't put a rubber gasket. And that kind of will damage the hot shoe mount thing on your camera because it's going to scratch it. Like, especially for somebody like me who has a black camera, my Fujifilm X-H1, the hot shoe thing is kind of scratched now. I mean, obviously I don't care about stuff like that, but somebody else might. That's probably something ESDDI could improve in a future unit of this device or another camera monitor. Please include a rubber gasket. And the second issue with this, what do I call it now? This thing is that it kind of, it doesn't stay, it doesn't sit flush essentially. After you install it, it kind of gets a little, I don't know if the word is shaky, but like, because there's no rubber gasket and because the thing is so aluminum and so tight, it just, there's a chance that it can come off of your hot shoe mount if you're not very careful essentially. There's also an extra hot shoe mount off to the side of this device actually, and a 1/4 inch adapter jack that you can screw something else into, which I think is a really nice touch. And yeah, the sun hood is actually also included, like I said before, for if you're showing outdoors or like in direct sunlight and you need like the extra protection. That's a really nice touch, a really nice thing to add. And sorry, hold on. Yes, when you put the battery in, the device actually comes on automatically by itself. If that's a nice touch or it's not, I really don't know, but yeah, it comes on immediately. You put the battery on. Yes, so this is the micro HDMI cable that I bought, that I've been using because it's coiled. The cables that come in the box are not coiled. They're basically these regular long cables, which are like, I don't know, difficult to work with, especially if you're like an handheld shooter. You don't want to have those kind of cables. I mean, obviously it's nice that they included all the cables that you're supposed to need in the box, but the quality of those cables is not great because they're just all over the place. So I replaced my HDMI micro cable with this, and I've basically been using this ever since, and you know, it works perfectly for me. It cost me like an extra $15, I think, from Amazon. Not a big deal. I think anybody who can afford to buy a monitor for $169 should be able to afford like a $15 cable, I suppose. And that is all for all the physical bits and the parts of the monitor. I also upgraded my batteries to my own Canon MP770 batteries because the battery that was included, while it's good and it functions, it's kind of small. It's less than half the size of this one's, so I don't really see a need or feel a need to use that when I have these bigger capacity batteries that I could be using, and they last like way longer and, you know, forever pretty much, because the device is actually not a battery hog. It lasts forever with one of these batteries. Like, I have been shooting for weeks with this, although it's just literally some b-roll I've been shooting and talking at videos like this, but you know, the battery is still around 80% after shooting for more than 2-3 weeks now. So yeah, incredible battery life for this device, especially if you upgrade your batteries to one of the bigger capacity batteries pretty much. So that's about all for the features and, you know, the things that I upgraded and the things that I changed. Now, what do I actually think about the panel of this device? Here's where it gets interesting. Now, you have to realize that this is a budget monitor. It's not an Atomos Ninja or something else. Those other professional monitors cost thousands of dollars, you know, from $1,000 to thousands of dollars. I think the cheapest one that you can get is like $950 or something like that. And this is only $169. So you have to kind of manage your expectations. The panel is not bad. Now, it says it's a 4K compatible panel, which means it reads 4K footage, or it takes a 4K input, but it's actually a 1080p panel, which is actually very clear, very vibrant. All the features work, everything works great. But when you use this monitor and you look at the panel or the small screen on the back of your camera, the small screen on the back of your camera is going to look a little better. And the reason for that is probably because, you know, it's a smaller screen, and like, you know, it's higher quality than this. You probably still have touch screen on there and stuff. This one just looks a little lower quality in comparison. But of course, it's a budget monitor. It's always going to look lower quality in comparison to something that comes attached to like a $2,000 camera or something, or having an external monitor that's like professional grade and like has a 4K screen and stuff. So yeah, please manage your expectations, know exactly what you're getting. While this is a great device and I absolutely recommend it, you should know that the screen does not look like it costs more than you paid for it. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, it looks like a $169 monitor screen. So yeah, pay attention to that. So I think ultimately there's really not much else to talk about with this device. It's a great device. I've enjoyed using it every single day since I got it. I have shot so many different videos. I have shot so many different things with this monitor, and absolutely fantastic monitor. You should probably read the manual to get like all the features, but actually I think let me turn it on and, you know, run through some of the settings that we have inside the monitor. Yes, so the first screen on the settings, you get like this speak mode, which you can switch from standard to a bunch of other things. I'm not really going to mess with that. You get brightness, contrast, saturation, sharpness, which I don't think you should mess with. You get color temperature 6500K. Then you have like the red balance, the green balance, and all that stuff. Let's move to the next page. Yes, so next page of the settings, you basically get language settings, you get aspect ratio settings, basically the signal settings, you get OSD settings, backlighting, like the percentage of the backlighting, basically the power it's on, power on or power off. You basically have it on auto out of the box. Basically when you put the battery in, it turns on automatically. That's what that means. You have USB upgrade settings, and then you have reset settings and your firmware version. When you move to the next page, you get like zoom features, zoom modes, scan modes, and stuff like that. The next page is basically all the extra features, like the things that this monitor can do for you. Essentially, you have a center marker, you have save frames, 9 grid, image freeze, image flip, OSD flip, anamorphic, anamorphic NX, check field, histograms, false colors, focus assist, focus speaking colors, overexposure, exposure levels, embedded audio, yada yada yada. You have ratio markers, mark color, mark width, and modified mark. And for the last page on the device, you get histograms and image flip. This last page basically just shows you an F, and that's what tells you what you set to each of these custom buttons. Essentially, you can see in my own function buttons, I have histogram set to F1, and I have image flip set to F2, which is easy to remember for me, essentially, since those are like the only two features that I really use constantly. I already kind of have focus speaking on the back of my camera, so I don't really need that up here, essentially. So that's about all the features for this budget monitor that I got on Amazon for like $169. Pretty solid stuff. Loved it every single day, every single moment that I've had it. And that's about all my thoughts about the device. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on another video that was shot by Kagan. Peace.